Hakadosh Boker or Masechet Sanhedrin, this Daf Yomi, Daf Lamed Amud Aleph 3881. We were talking about right now that there was a miracle. What was the miracle? That she became pregnant standing up, and that's why it was called Shaltiel, because usually a woman cannot become pregnant standing up, and here she did. Davar Acher, another explanation. Shaltiel. What does it mean Shaltiel? Shenishal al alato el. What does that mean? Hashem was asking on the Shivua, right? That basically he went and he said that Yechoniah was going to die, right? And again, die without children. That's Adidi. Adidi is without children. And here he did Hafarat Nedarim. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu did Hafarat Nedarim. Zerubbabel. What does it mean now, Zerubbabel? Shenizra beBavel. What does that mean? He became conceived. She became, the mother became conceived in Bavel. Umash Shemo. So what is the real name of Zerubbabel? Right? Nehemiah ben Chachliah Shemo. Fine. Says the Gemara. Yehuda v'Chizkiah ben Ere b'Chiyah Abu Yatve b'Seudat HaKameh Rebbe. Yehuda and Chizkiah, the children of B'Chiyah, were sitting in the Seudah in front of Rebbe. Ve'lo avu kamani ve'lo midi, and they didn't say anything whatsoever. So Amar lehu, so Rebbe comes and he tells the Shamashim, Akbaru chamra darteke, right? Come and give wine to the tzirim. Ki eicha dilem lo milta, in order that they should say something. Meaning, they didn't say anything. They didn't talk. So he went and he said, give them some wine. Like, why? So that way they start talking. So Kevin the Ibsum, once they came and they started getting a little bit high, right, on alcohol, Patchu ve'amru, they went and they said, En ben David bat sheichlu shne bate avot miYisrael. Ben David, Mashiach is not going to come until they're going to finish two different moshlim amongst Israel. Ve'elu en Rosh HaGolah shebeBavel ve'anasi shebe'eretz Yisrael. Rosh HaGolah in Bavel, and the second one is going to be the Bet HaNasi in Eretz Yisrael, which is the Mishpach of Rebbe. That's when Mashiach is going to come, right? So again, obviously the Nasi was in Eretz Yisrael and the Resh Galuta was in Bavel. So he comes and he says, only when they finish those two families, that's when they're going to come in the Mashiach. Shneimar, v'ayal lemikdash ulev negef, right? Ultzur mikshol lishne batei Yisrael. Amar lahem, so Rebbe tells them, Banai, kotzim atem matilim b'enai? He says, what, you want to throw me thorns? Right? I think he repented on giving them a little bit of wine before, it's better that they should have kept quiet. So he says, Amalo Rebbe says Rebbe, Rebbe, al yira b'einecha. Rebbe, don't be upset at them. Why? Yain nitan right, nitan b'shivim otiyot. Do you know the yain was given with 70, meaning the gematria of wine is 70, right? V'sod nitan b'shivim otiyot. And sod is also going to be 70. Right, the numerical value, right? Samech is 60, Vav and Dalet is 6 and 4 is 10, 70. Yain is Yod, 10, 10, and Nun is 50. So it's going to be 70. So it's equal. So what does that mean? Nichnas Yain, Yatzah Sod. Meaning that once the wine comes in the body, Yatzah Sod, what does that mean? Comes the secrets which are coming out, and therefore it's because of it. So it's not that the Chavanah, that they're coming and they're trying to do something to you. They're half drunk. What do you want from them? They started drinking the wine, and therefore they started coming. They started saying things that they shouldn't have said. Why? Because they're drunk. What do you want from them? Fine. Amar Rav Chassan Amar Murukva. Says Rav Chassan Imar Murukva. The Amnilan Sabi says Rav Chassan Darsh Mari Bar Mar. Right? He comes and he says Mori Bar Mar. He says, "My dictive. What does it mean in pasuk? V'yishkod Hashem al harav v'yivia aleinu ki tzadik Hashem Elokenu." He says, "Mishum de tzadik Hashem." Because Hashem is a tzadik, v'yishkod Hashem al harav v'yivia, He's going to bring us the bad things. Doesn't make sense. So he says, "In yes, tzedakah asa Hakadosh Baruch Hu im Yisrael." Hakadosh Baruch Hu did tzedakah Yisrael shegdim galut Tzidkiyahu, right? He actually first brought the galut of Tzidkiyahu first. Ve'od galut Yechoniah kayemet, and there was still going to be the galut of Yechoniah, right? Why? He comes and he says over here like this. He says, "Dichtiv begalut Yechoniah, but it's written by galut Yechoniah, right? Echarash ve'amasker elef." What does that mean? Right? When we're talking about this pasuk echarash, we're talking about masker. We're talking about that the kavanah was for chachamim gedolim b'Torah. And that's why it says Chadash. Chadash is the Chachamim over here. And why are they called that? Once they start speaking, everybody becomes Chereshim. Right? They become Cheresh. They can't talk. All of a sudden, what's going on? Masger. What is Masger? Kevan shesogrin b'alacha. Once they close the halacha that way, Shuvim potchin. They don't start again. The Kamayu. So how many Talmidei Chachamim were they in the Golim? Elef. There were 1,000 Talmidei Chachamim. So these Talmidei Chachamim came and they taught Torah to the Golim in Bavel. So it comes out that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu came, he was Magdim, the Galut of Tzidkiyahu, there were 1,000 people. That's what it says. Af b'nei Galut zu acharon limod Torah mipihem. And that's why it was actually a chesed that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did. Meaning, don't think that it's something bad. It was something good for them. So they were able to learn Torah. Ula Amad, Ula comes and he says, there was another, what? So he says, Ula Amad, Ula comes and he says, there was another chesed. You know what the chesed was? Shigdim shte shanim v'lo shantem. What does that mean? Right? We know that the numerical value of Noshantem is 852. Okay, now what does that mean? if they would have stayed another 2 years in Eretz Israel, it would have already gotten to Noshantem. And if it would have gone to Noshantem, they would have actually been destroyed. They would have been eradicated. And therefore, when Hashem came and he took them into Galut 2 years earlier, it was actually a tzedek. It was like a tzedakah that he did with us. Because only because he sent us to Bavel 2 years earlier, we weren't destroyed. Because if not, V'noshantem, Gamanu, Kaddish, you're going to be destroyed. So he didn't want to do that. Right? Here you have there in the footnote, he brings down V'noshantem is the numerical value 852. Fine. And then he says, right, Mechashev Kama Shanim Hayu Kvar, right, Yisrael Beretz Yisrael, when he says the first Bet HaMikdash, you have to remember, he says when Shlomo built the Bet HaMikdash, it was 480 years after the Yitziat Mitzrayim. The Bet HaMikdash was for 410 years, so it was 890. Okay? So he comes and he says, right, which he says, in order to find the amount of years that they were in Eretz Yisrael, you have to take off 40 years that they were in the desert. Right? So that's 850. Everyone understood the count? One more time. 480 was when Shlomo Melech built the Bet HaMikdash. 480 from Yitziat Mitzrayim. How long was the first Bet HaMikdash standing? 410. Remember, the first Bet HaMikdash 410, second Bet HaMikdash 420. Right? So what happened? 410 plus 480, right, is going to be what? 890. So now, but how they were in Eretz Yisrael for 890 years? No. Why? 40 years in the desert. I said it was 480 years from Yitziat Mitzrayim. So there was 40 years in the desert. So 890 minus 40 is 850. Meaning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if he would have kept the Bet HaMikdash for 2 more years, it would have been 852 that they were in Eretz Yisrael. If it would have been, which that would have been the destruction of Am Yisrael. So therefore, the fact that he took them out 2 years earlier, so that was a chesed, that was a tzedakah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did, that we didn't get to V'noshantem. That was the chidush, right, that we're bringing down over here. Because it says in the Pasuk. By the way, this we read on Tisha B'Av, by the way. This is Kitoli Banim, that's the purpose. Right, why we read it on Tisha B'Av. So he says, Kitoli Banim V'noshantem ba'aretz v'yishchatem, they're going to stay in the land. V'yishchatem v'asitim d'muna kol v'asitim adam b'nei Hashem. So, then, right, he's going to destroy us. So therefore, if it says V'noshantem ba'aretz, how many years do you have to be in Eretz Yisrael? 852. So he says, if you're going to be 852, so therefore you're going to be destroyed. So therefore, HaKadosh did chesed that it was 850. And after 850, he sent us out to Galut. So that way we weren't in Eretz Yisrael for the other 2 years. I just said it.
The formula is like that.
Yeah, say it like this. So Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, says Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Shema Mina, we learn from here, Meherad de Mare Alma. Right, what does that mean? When HaKadosh Baruch Hu says Mehera, it's Tamne 150 v'tarten havu. Right, it's going to be, right, it's going to be 852. Right, so he comes and he says, right, as follows, because he says V'noshan avot tovdu maher, because that was the next pasuk that I told you, that they will be destroyed quickly. So according to that, what does it mean maher? What does it mean quickly? So he says when it says quickly, it's 852 years. Okay, fine, 2 dots. Lefichach, and therefore we said that a person was going to be created yichidi, right, and as an individual. We learned to the right. Adam yichidi nivra. Human being was created yichidi. Why was he created yichidi? Shelo yu haminim omrim. So the minim are not going to say better shiyot b'shamayim, that there's going to be a lot of rishonot, shiltonot in the shamayim, right? And therefore that's why he was created by one. Because if you're going to come, you're going to say that it was many, right? So therefore they're going to say each one was created like himself. So therefore you've got many different creatures or many different creatures. The fact that it's all one, so therefore you see it. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu created one. Because this is what he wanted. If you've got, remember, there's 5 Jews, 20 opinions. So if they're going to come and they're going to create a robot, you're going to have 20 different robots for 5 Jews. Right? That's why whenever you have a board, you got 100 opinions. Right? Why? Each one thinks differently. And each one doesn't think one thing differently. 5 things differently. So each one, you're going to have 20 million different opinions. So what happens is, he says, if right now you would have had a few different human beings created, so they would have thought, maybe, listen, there's a few Chas Shalom Hashems. Right? Why? Because look, each one, so they have, right? Each one created what he wanted to have of that. So therefore, what happens is, no, really, be'emet, we're going to say one. Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu's one, he created one. Tavar acher, another explanation. Mipnei hatzadikim b'nei reshaim. Because of the tzadikim and the reshaim. Shelo ye tzadikim omrim, anu b'nei hatzadik, reshaim omrim, anu b'nei rasha. What does that mean? Imagine right now you have 20 people who are the first people in the world. Right? And let's say you had Cain, was one of them. So now, if I come from Cain, I'm always going to have an excuse for the rest of my life. I'm going to say, listen, I came from Cain, I came from the Rasha. Right? And you come from Hevel, so you're going to say, I came from the Tzaddik. So from now on, me, my generations, everyone else, they're always going to say, you know what? Because I came from there. Who said, everyone comes from the same person. You all came from the same mold. You came from the same one. Adam Rishon. So don't say, I'm a Rasha because of him, or I'm a Tzaddik because of him. Nothing to do with it. You are a Rasha or a Tzaddik because of you, not because of anybody else. So he says that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu did it, right, in such a fashion. Davar acher, another explanation. Mipnei mishpachot, because of the mishpachot. Shloi mishpachot migol b'zeh. They didn't want to say that you're going to have different families saying, I'm greater than you, because I come from family, whatever it is. And you're going to say you're greater than him, but you come from family B. And other, no. We all come from the same family. We all come from the same one. So imagine nowadays that still HaKadosh Baruch Hu created everything from Adam and Rishon, and still everybody's fighting around that my family is better than your family. So he says, imagine now, right? So imagine if there was two families. Imagine you would have a whole feud. Why? Because I come from the hierarchy. I come from the good one. You come from the the lower one, and the other one. No. I'm the high. HaKadosh Baruch Hu bara yichidi. Davar acher, another explanation. Because of the people of the Chamsanin Gazlanin. What does that mean? They're going to come. They're going to start taking the karka. They're going to say, you belong to my father. And right now you come and you... No, so everyone has the same. If right now HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Adam and Rishon, and it's only one, and still goes limechomsin, right? Which means that everyone came from the same father, and still they steal and all those things. Nivrusha, imagine right now, you're going to have all the family feuds. No, this is my Yerusha, really bemet, I should have gotten it. And no, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created one. Okay? Fine. So then he says, Ulagi Gdulato, but it's not only that. It's also teaching you the Gdula of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he created one. He says, why? Let's say, Tanu Rabbanan, Lagi Gdulato של מלך ולאחים HaKadosh Baruch Hu, שאדם תובע כמה מדוע בחותם אחד, וכולם דומים זה לזה. אבל HaKadosh Baruch Hu תובע כל אדם בחותמו של אדם הראשון, ואין אחד מהם דומה לחברו. Meaning like this, if you take, for example, Avdil Elef Avdalot, a coin, right? They all look the same. Even now, these factories, right? When they do it in mass production like that, it's the mold, it's all the same. It's not that you're going to have a factory and each cookie is going to look different. They all look the same, the exact same way. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the chokhmah, the gdula of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is he's going to make them all domeh to Adam Rishon, and each one he's going to change one little strand of DNA, and every single human being is different. Right? You don't have one human being which is going to be the same. Shneimar says the pasuk, titapech kechomer chotam v'yityatzvu kemo levush. What does that mean? The tzurat Adam is going to be like a chomer, like the teeth, right? When a person comes, right, and they pass away, they come to the same chomer of the same of the dirt and everything. Nevertheless, by betchiyat hametim, they're all going to come up, and they're all going to come up with their own form. Meaning, even though they all go back to the ground and they all disintegrate and they all everything that you want, when they come back by tchiyat hametim, it's all going to be each person with his own levush, each person with his own thing. So why don't we have the same faces? He says, "Shlo yeda adam dira na'a v'yishana v'yomar shelihu." Right? Shneimar v'yimana min reshaim oram uzru arama tishaver. Imagine right now everyone had the same face, right? So now everyone looks alike. But what's going to happen? Somebody's going to come and he's going to say, "I like this house," or "I like this wife," and what's going to happen? It's mine. Why? Because we look alike. We're all going to be the same thing. So therefore, right, a person could never come and say, right, that it's somebody else or something else. No. We're all different. Tanya, we learned in the Braita. Rabbi Mi says, do you know that there's three things that a person is different than their friends? Bekol, mar'eh, uvedat. Their voice, their appearance, and the da'at. Bekol mar'eh, why does it have to be different in kol mar'eh? He says because of erva. Because imagine, if not, then a person could go with somebody else's wife, they look the same, and they sound the same. So every single human being had to look differently, right? They had to look differently, even with twins, right? Even with twins, they have to look differently, right? And they have to sound differently, because at the end of the day, in order that there shouldn't be a problem of erva, okay? Because if not, then obviously you have a problem. And that's why even the kol was at nighttime, because the mar'eh could be during the daytime. What about nighttime? So you have the kol. The kol is the voice, right? It has a different voice, right? Uvedaat, because of the gazlanin and the chamsanin. He says, but if everyone would be the same, so then a person would be able to come and to reveal, right? Even without just knowing the same ashava, he knows exactly what's going on. So therefore, because of the gazlanin chamsanin, they had to think differently as well. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita, but there's always going to be the Gazalim Chasanim. He says like this: Tanu Rabbanan, Adam Nivra Erev Shabbat. The person is going to be the human being was created on Erev Shabbat. Why? It was purposely done. Mamash, the last thing was Adam. Why was Adam the last thing created? Because they didn't want to say that. Listen, if it was going to be on the first day, they would have said that Adam and Rishon Ki'ilu was a shutaf to Hashem. No. The last thing created in this world was the Adam. not the first thing. So he says, Davar acher, another explanation. Shim tazuach tatu alav, if he's going to become haughty, Omer lo, his friend could come and tell him, Al titkae, don't be haughty. You know why? Yitushka de mecha Maaseh Bereshit. Even the fly, the mosquito, preceded you in Maaseh Bereshit. Meaning, don't come and think you're such a big shot. You understand? At the end of the day, you're one of the last. Right? So don't think, Davar acher, another explanation also. He says, Kadesh yikanes lemitzvah miyad. He said he purposely did it in order that immediately came out the Adam Rishon, and immediately Shabbat. There should be a mitzvah immediately coming into it. Another explanation, that he should come into the סעודה מוכן מיד, משל מלך בשר ודם שבנה פלטרים ושכללן, והתקין סעודה ואחר כך הכניס אורחים. He comes, the מלך בשר ודם, he comes, he built a big palace, and then afterwards he comes and he finishes it, he prepared the סעודה, and afterwards he brought the אורחים in. So the same thing, the אורחים now are the human beings, he brought them only after the palace and everything was actually done. שנאמר בספר בפסוק, חוכמה בנתה ביתה, חצבה עמודי השבעה, טבחה, טבחה, right? Mascha yena, af archa shulchana, shalcha naroteh tikra al gape, right? Menome karet. What does that mean? First, at the beginning, you realize was that the chokhmah banta beta. First, you build the house. Chatzva amudei shiva. You make the 7 amudim. Okay, there's a whole question about this. Is this says the 7 continents? Is it other things? Tavcha tivcha, it prepares the seudah. Mazga yena, it puts the wine. Afarcha shulchana, it sets the table. And then shalchan nanotea, then it's going to send a nanotea to call out, tikral gapem romekashet, to call everybody to come to the seudah. Chokhmah banta veta, zulemidato. What does that mean? The chokhmah v'akadosh baruch hu. It says why? Shebarat kol ha'olam b'chokhmah. He built the entire world with chokhmah. That's the chokhmot. Chokhmot is referring to Hashem. Hashem built the world b'chokhmah. Chatzra mudei shiva, elu shivat yimei bereshit. These are the 7 days of Bereshit. Okay, these are the 7 days of Bereshit. He comes and he says that even though it was 6 days, the 7th day was mitzaref with them. Fine. He comes and he says now, tavcha tivcha. Right, these are yamim ne'arot chol tzorchei olam. He says this is the entire world, whether it's going to be the rivers, right, the seas, everything that you need in the world. That's what he did over here. Shalcha na'arotea tikra. That's Adam Chava. So then he went and he called them. That's Adam v'Chava. Al gapeh menumeh karet. Rabbi Barchan Arami ktiv. It says it's 1 second. I have a contradiction in the psukim. It says al gapeh menumeh karet, which means at the beginning we're talking about at the high places of the Kirya of the city, and then ichtiv, and it's written al kiseh menome karet. Al kiseh is the highest places of the city. So what's going on over here? So he says like this. He says it's mashma that it was less than al gapeh. It was al kiseh. So he says batchila at the beginning before they sinned, it was al gapeh. Before Adam and Rishon and Chava sinned, they were mamash at the top of the world. But at the end, once they sinned, then it was al kiseh menome karet. Mi peti yasur hena chasar lev amralo. What does that mean? According to this, the chokhmah is coming and telling to the petty, to the fool, and the person that's chasar lev to go away from the seudah. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, mi petao lezeh. Who was the one that came and was pitah? Who was the one that seduced Adam and Rishon? Right? Remember, lefatot, right? And petty. That's what we spoke about in Seudah Shlishit. The Gaon Mivina says it's the same shoresh, right? That a fool and seduce, right? To seduce someone. Lefatot. So he says, mi petao lezeh, isha. It's the isha, which is chasar lev. Amra lo, she said that dichtiv noef isha chasar lev. Right? What does that mean? That means even though it's mashma, the chasar lev is the noef, still it's giving a dirasha that it's chasar lev is referring to the woman. So this chasar lev, this woman was the one that seduced Adam Rishon to do the sin. Tanya, we learned about Rabbi says, Adam Rishon mikol olam kulo hutzbar afaro. So from the entire world was taken his afar. Shneimar golmira u'enecha. What does it mean golmira u'enecha? He comes and he says, David HaMelech comes and he says that his body was chaser the tzura from the beginning. So it's written, Ki Hashem enav meshoteto b'chol haaretz, that his eyes are all over the entire world. So from there they learned that from the entire world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took afar from the entire world, put it together in order to make Adam Rishon. So Amar Rav Oshia Mishmei de Rav, says Rav Oshia in the name of Rav, Adam Rishon Lamedchet Amubet 38b. Adam Rishon gufo min Bavel, Rosho Meretz Yisrael. He says the body comes from Bavel, the head comes from Eretz Yisrael. But Varav, which is talking about the hands and the feet and everything else, that comes from Shad Aratzot. Agvotav, his back part, Amaravacha, Me'akra de Agma. From Akra de Agma, it comes from a very deep place in Bavel, in Babylonia. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, now again, obviously it was important. This is, by the way, proving to you that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took him from the entire world and he created him. But obviously there's much deeper things here. Why Dafka does the head have to come from Eretz Yisrael? Obviously the head is where you have the neshama, right? The brain, right? The moach, right? And then again, the gufo mi bavel. There's a lot of what to speak about there. But again, Yes, about the Agutav. Obviously, there's a reason for that. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan bar Chanina says Rabbi Yochanan bar Chanina, "Shtem shaot yayom." Do you know that it was 12 hours into the day? Meaning, when you're going to take a day, every single day is 12 hours. Even if it's not full 12 hours, the day is divided always into 12 portions, right? That's a day. Day is 12 hours. Night is 12 hours. Sometimes the hour is longer, then shorter, but it's always 12 hours. Sha'ad ishona utzbar faro. Right? The first hour, it was gathered together the afar of Adam Rishon. Shniya, the second hour, nasa golem. He was made into like a form. Shlishit in Evarav. Revi'it nizekabo neshama. Only the fourth hour was put into the neshama. Chamishit amad raglav. In the fifth hour, he got on his feet. The shishit karash shemot. On the sixth hour, he called names to all the animals. Shvi'it on the seventh hour, nizdavagalo chava. He had relations with chava. Shminit on the eighth hour, Lula Mitash 9, two people went up to the bed, Yardua Arba'ah, and they came down, the two children, right? Which means there was nobody said any Shoshot. No. No. Whoever said any Shoshot. Tishiit Nitzava, no. Tishiit Nitzava. Tishiit Nitzava, huh? Here it says it's two children. He says over here, Nodash Toyodim, Cain v'achoto teoma. And then Hevel was afterwards. No, Hevel was two. No, but that was afterwards. That wasn't this time. Cain was older than Hevel. So Cain came with his Tohom, right? And then the next time around, right, it was Hevel with two Tohomot. Yeah, afterwards. Right? So he says, B'shat she'it nitztava shelo le'echol min ha'Ilan. On the ninth hour, he was commanded not to eat from the Ilan. Asirit, the 10th hour, was Sarach. V'achad nidon. On the 11th hour, he was judged. Shtem esrei, in the 12th hour, nitrad v'alach. He was divorced from Gan Eden. Shneimar, Adam bikar bal yalin. What does that mean? That he wasn't even Laila Echad. Right, Mamash, he wasn't even good. He's not even Laila Echad biyakar in the Gan Eden. So Amar Rabbi Merchama says, "En chaya ra'a sholet v'adam elam ken nidme lo kebehema." Do you know this? By the way, if I'm just going to tell it to you, but I'm not going to explain it. But just to understand this thing about the hours, right? There's a beautiful sefer that he actually explains how this is connected, and I think it's also Ramban. How every single hour is connected to the years, meaning that we have the 7,000 of the years, right? So therefore, you wanted to say that every single hour, right, is going to be meaning in the 6,000th year, every single hour is every 100 years, it's going to connect each one. And that's why we're going to actually understand by what's going on. So Amar Rabbi Chama says, Rabbi Chama, En chaya ra'a sholet ba'adam elam ken nidme lo kebehema. Do you know that a chaya ra'a will never attack a human being unless it looks to him like a behema? Shneimar nimshal kebehemo nidmu. That's why there were famous stories with the Khatam Sofer and many others as well, that if the lion came into the city, right, the lion was devouring people. Right? He went and he said, "Where's the lion?" He went out with his tefillin. He looked. The lion got afraid, and the lion just ran away. Why? Because behemet, right? They are going to be afraid of you. It's only if you look like a human being, like you look like an animal in their eyes, they're going to attack you. Because it said, the next siman is going to be Sha'ah Besof Armi Siman. Amar Rav Yudah Marav says Rav Yudah when HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to create the human being, he created one group of Malachei HaSharet. And he told them, should we make an Adam? They said, Ribono Shel Olam, Ma ma'asav? What does he do? אמר להם, כך וכך מעשיו. אמרו לפניו, ריבונו של עולם, מה אנוש כי תזכרנו בני אדם? Why do we need this? So, הושיט אצבעו קטנה ביניהם ושרפם. He went and he burnt them. Yeah, he made crisp toast. וכן כת שנייה. So then now the second group of מלאכים. And they said, כת שלישית. אמרו לפניו, ריבונו של עולם, ראשונים שאמרו לפניך מה הועילו? כל העולם כולו שלך אחי. He says the entire world is yours. כל מה שאתה רוצה לעשות בלמחסה. She says, what are you asking? Imagine right now you got a person that's your advisor. Every single time you say something, he comes and he kills you. Or he gives it to you on the head. So what? He says, what? You're the king. Do whatever you want. Gamarnu. What are you asking us for? Once it came the Anshe Dor Mabul Dor Palaga, Shemasemi Kulkalim, their actions were bad. Amru lefanav, they said in front of them, Ribono Shel Olam, Lo Yafeh Amru L'Shem Lefanecha. They said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, 1 second. The first Malachim, weren't they right? Weren't they correct in what they said? Amar la, and he said, Ve'at zikna ani hu, ve'at seva ani esbol. What does that mean? Kol yamav shel adam ani esbol oto. Even on the chesronotav, which means that no matter how many deficiencies a human being has, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come and he's going to be sovel the human beings. Amar Rav Yudah Marav says Rav. Adam Nishom Sofa Olam and Sofa Olam Yad. You know that Adam Nishom was from one Sofa Olam until Sofa Olam. Shneimar, Imen Yom Hashem Berah Elokim et Adam Haaretz v'yitzeh Shemaim v'kaseh Shemaim. Kevan shetzarech, once he sinned, Heniach HaKadosh Baruch Hu et Yado alav miyato. HaKadosh Baruch Hu minimized him. Right? Shneimar, Achor v'kedem tzartani v'tashal kapecha. What does that mean? That even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu came and he created him, right, he put his hand on him, tashal kapecha, he put his and then he came and he minimized him. This was after the sin, but before the sin, he was the entire world. Amar Rabbi Lazar says Rabbi Lazar, Adam nishom minaretz ad l'rakia. You know, he was as tall from the mamash, from the floor until the rakia. Shneimar says Batzuk ben Yom Hashem Elohim Adam and Ratzum Yikdesh Shamayim. Kevan shetzarach, once he came and he was sarach. הניח הקדוש ברוך הוא ידו לו מיתו, he came as he minimum שנאמר, האחור וכן צטני, ראית ותשלי כפיך. So says the Gemara, קשו קראי הדדי, you have a סתירה. You just told me על הארץ ומקצה השמיים, right, which means that he was ממש בין השמיים לארץ. And then you tell me מקצה השמיים ועד קצה השמיים. Not ומקצה השמיים ועד קצה השמיים. So it's משמע that it was like באמת מקצה אחד לקצה השני. So he comes and he says, answers the Gemara, you're right, it's the same thing. The merchak between the Aretz and the Shamayim is the merchak between two Ketzot HaOlam. Meaning the same distance that you have from the Shamayim to the Aretz, right? That it's the same distance between one part of the Aretz and the other part of the Aretz. It's the same distance. Okay, so he comes and he says, Ve'amar Rabbi Yehuda Marav, says Yehuda Marav, Adam Rishon Lashon Arami Siper. Do you know that he used to speak in Lashon Arami? Shneimar says Pasuk, Ve'luyma yakru re'echa el. What does that mean? Adam comes and he says, look how heavy, look, or how, right, Kvedot, he says, it's Elai Machshavotecha Hashem. He comes and he says, I can't understand Hashem. So he says, Re'echa is coming from the Milah of Aramita Machshavotecha, of your thoughts. Right? That means look how important, how it is. That's why the Shakish says, what does that mean in Pasuk? Zeh Sefer Toldot Adam, Melamed Sharav HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Dor Dorashav, right, Dor V'chachamav. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed Adam Rishon every single generation. All the generations and all the Chachamim. Kevin Shigiu the daughter of Rabbi Akiva, once he got to the daughter of Rabbi Akiva, Samach, he was very, very happy. Right? Why? He was very happy with the Torah. But he was very sad about the death of Rabbi Akiva. Marsa, he says, meaning, right, what am I going to do? At the end of the day, right, he couldn't understand how could there be such a big tzaddik and how he died such a death. Says you know Adam Rishon was a heretic. What does that mean? Where did your heart go? Right? So what does that mean? Rabbi Yitzchak comes and he says, right? Moshech be'olato aya. He came and he was Moshech Orla. So that way he'd like to get rid of the Brit Milah. As it says, Vehema ke'adam avru brit. Tivatam, and it's written over there, Briti Efar. So from the fact that it's written like that, we learn that he was the Kilu Over la Brit. So therefore, what did he do? He was Moshech Orlato. Rav Nachman Amar, Kofer Ba'ikar. He was Kofer Ba'ikar. Why? It's written over here, Avru Brit. Ktivatam, it's written over there, right, or Briti Efar or whatever. Then he says, Vamru ala shel azvu et brit Hashem lokechem. So therefore, from the first pasuk, we're learning that he was Avar Adam ala Brit, and from the second pasuk, we're learning that the Brit was not to do Avodah Zarah. So again, three different opinions. What exactly happened with Adam Rishon? Whether it was a min, Moshech Olato, or Kofer Ba'ikar. Tanatam, we learned over there. Right? This is in the Mishnah Pirkei Avot. Rabbi Eliezer, Omer Eliezer says, "V'shekul limod Torah, v'dama she'tachil pikoros." You always have to be learning Torah, but you have to know what to answer to the pikoros. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Rabbi Yochanan lo shanu ela la pikoros of dekovim." We're talking about the pikoros of a goy, but a pikoros shel Yisrael, kol sheken de pakatfei. He says it's going to be mamash mafkid oto even more, which means you don't argue with a Jew. Meaning you want to argue with a goy, have all the vikuchim that you want with a goy, but with a Jew, don't even bother arguing. Right? That's what he says over here. Right? He comes and he says it's going to mamash going to try to do everything the opposite, which is a taut. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan, Kol makom shepakru aminim teshuvatam b'tzidah. Do you know any pasuk that the minim came and they wanted to bring a proof to theirs? The answer is actually there. It's a mamash like right over there. That's where they have the answer. Naaseh adam etzalmenu. Right? It says Naaseh adam. Now the minim are going to say, what does that mean? There's more than one God, because we said we are going to make Naaseh Adam b'tzalmenu. He says, yeah, but the next pasuk, mamash, one pasuk afterwards, it says, "Vayivra Elohim et Adam tzalmo." Hashem created them. Hava nereda v'nevala sham tzvatam. Again, another pasuk that it says that we are going to go down and going to mix up the languages, and it says Vayered Hashem, right? Right. That's why it said beforehand, Vayered Hashem lirot even migdal. Hashem went down to see. Meaning, even though afterwards he was speaking in a language which is used of plural. Right at the beginning, he did use a singular. So therefore, Hashem was right. So wherever the minim are going to come and tell you something, it's right there the answer. So he says, "Hisham niglu elav elokim," because over there, that's where Hashem came and revealed Himself. La ela oniotim. See which one? That means there it's Elohim. Right? It sounds like there's a few gods. Right? Niglu, and Elohim. It says no. It's the Elohim that he answered me, right, on the day of the Maitzara. So it's obviously one God. Again, meaning, when it says Kimi goy gadol shelo Elohim kirovim elav, Elohim krovim, again, plural. Every Elohim and krovim. So after it says no, but it's Kashem Elohenu b'chol konenu elav. It's going to be Hashem Elokeinu is close to us. So basically, every pasuk, right? And the last one is it says over here, Chazet avet adadi karsan, right? Karsavan namiv, ve'atik yomin yitiv. Again, it's going to be in singular, meaning even though each one of these things it had a language which was plural, afterwards in this mamash one pasuk either before, one pasuk afterwards, it always came and it always gave the tshuva betzida, which means the answer which was right beside it, which is going to be singular. Hanach lamali. So all of these things, why? But, okay, fine. You answered it. Then each one you answer. But why do we have it in plural? Right? What? Ki'ilu you're doing it. So he says no, like Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, out of respect, he'll always ask the Pamal Shaman Shneimar, B'Gzerat Tirim Pitgama of Memar Kadishin Shelta. What does that mean? In the Gzerat Malachim you have it, and Memar Kadishin is Gzerat. What does that mean? You see the humbleness of Hakadosh Baruch Hu that even though he doesn't need to ask, he doesn't, but he does it anyway. Right? He says, Hatenach kulhi, right? They bring, by the way, a kavachomer this to your wife for Shalom Bayit, that even if you wanted to take the decision your own, you should always ask your wife. Right? Fine. Hatenach kulhi, he comes and he says, that's not going to be all the other examples that we said make sense. What about the last one? The last one that Daniel over there, it said, Adi kasavan amiv, until the kisaot were placed and they were prepared the yeshiva, what are you going to say there? He didn't ask anybody. He says, no. Echad lo, one of them is a kiseh for Kadosh Baruch Hu, and one of them is for David HaMelech. Right, and one of them is going to be a throne for David HaMelech. Why? The Tanya was learned to the Braita. Hechal lo v'echal David divrei Akiva. Amar lo b'Yosei Akiva. Amatay ta oseh shechina chol. Right? He says, "Oh, you're going to kilu that you have to put Hashem with a human being." Ela echal ladin v'echal tzedakah. They're both for Hashem, but one is for din and one is for tzedakah, meaning kilu justice and one is for mercy. Right? Kibla minei lo. So the Gemara asked, did he accept it or not? At the end of the day, the first opinion was because we thought, why is it written two of them? And then he said, no, it was only written one. Yeah, but he didn't ask anybody. No, we're talking about two thrones. One throne for Hashem, one throne for David HaMelech. So says, that's what Akiva. He said, well, you told Akiva, I don't understand you. He says, what? Hashem needs to sit beside a human being. They're both Hashem. One is Kisedin, he said Achamim. So he says, okay, but did Rabbi Akiva accept it or not? We want to bring a proof to tell you. Rabbi Akiva was chazarbo, and he retracted just like Rabbi Yosef. And he said, "You're right. There's going to be two thrones. One of them is going to be for din, and one of them is going to be for tzedakah." He says, "What are you learning Agada now? You have to learn all the mamash negaim alot. He comes to shafshaf. What does that mean? He says no. He says the two kisaot. One of them is a kiseh. The other one is a shafraf. I don't know. He said in English. A shafraf looks like a little bankit, like a little stool, right? Something like that. He says kiseh is to actually sit on it. The shafraf was going to be la dom raglav, right? So he comes and he says that it's only just for the feet. So Amar Rav Nachman says Rav Nachman, Hayman diada ladur elaminim kerav idit liader vilo loader. If you know to answer the minim, just like Ravidit, answer them. But if not, don't bother. Meaning not everyone could just come and start arguing with the minim. You have to be very, very... Which one? Well, we already saw that it was only supposed to be with because... Hold on one second. Okay. So you come and he says this. So Amar Hahu, right? He comes and he says, Amar Hahu mina Ravidit. So he comes and he says there was a mean that came and told Rabbi Moshe. So there was this mean that comes and he tells him, right? Look, it says over there Moshe Hashem. That means Hashem himself is speaking. Ale Elai. You should say he's coming up to me. Why does he say Ale Hashem? Meaning, if Hashem is the speaker, why is he saying go up to Hashem? Oh, come up to me. Amaleh, he says Zememtet. Right? This is Memtet really. Sheshmo Keshem Rabo. The name is like the name of his master. Right? What does that mean? Right? We know the Memtet is the same gematria as one of the names of Hashem, Shin Daled Yod. Right? It's the same gematria, Memtet. So he says, since Shem Memtet has the same name of his rabbi, right? So therefore, Ki'ilu is saying, Alel Hashem, go up to Hashem. But it's really Be'emet, the Amar is Memtet. It's not really Hashem. Meaning, Hashem is not the speaker. It's Memtet the speaker. And Memtet is saying, go up to Hashem. Okay? So, Yehachi, if so, Nifechule. So why didn't you bow down to him? We have to serve him. He says, no, K'tiv al tamerbo. What does it mean al tamebo? Al taminenbo. Don't switch him. Don't start to. In Kenny says kilu yisal fi shachem. What does it mean then? Why do I need that? So he says Amaleh. He says hemanuta biadan. That's their umana. What does that mean? Memtet does not have the yicholet to be soleach avonot. So because of that, dafilu beparman kanami lo mekabline. That's why you can't even be mekabel oto not even as a shliach of Hashem to be laniyatam. Tichtiv you want to love right? Im en panecha olchim al talenu mizeh. What does that mean? If you yourself you do not go, it's better that you just stay in the desert. Meaning, you yourself, you have to go to Hashem. You can't just, you can't even use him as a shliach. So Elmaleh umina, there was once a mean that told Rabbi Shimon ben Rabbi Yosef, "K'tiv et tzvedem Hashem in tira Sodom v'amorah gofri v'esh me'et Hashem me'ito mi ba'ele." He says, what does that mean? There's only one Elokim. So what is it? Me'ito. He comes and he says, right, me'et Hashem. Oh, me'et Hashem. Right, me'ito. Elmaleh ahu kobes. So there was a kobes that answered him, Shiv ki anam, leave him. I'm going to answer him. You know what? Right? He says, one second. Nashai mi ba'ele. Lemech is a talker. And it says, Lemech speaks to his wives, Ada and Sila. And he tells them, Sheman Koli, listen to my voice. Neshe Lemech, the wives of Lemech. Now, one second. If you're Lemech and you're speaking to your wives, say, Nashai, my wives listen to me. Why does it say Neshe Lemech? Ela mishta ekra hachi, hachana misha. The pasuk speaks like that. What does that mean? That's the terminology of how people speak. Meaning the wives of this person. He's not going to say, my wife. The wives of this person. So Elmaleh, he says, Menalecha. He says, how do you know this really bemet? Right? Which means, how do you know that Lemech came and he wanted to push off the Sraya of the Minim, the pasuk from Sodom? He says, Mipiked the Rabbi Meir Shmile. He learned it from the Rabbi Meir. Meaning he learned from Rabbi Meir Banenes this answer, and therefore he was able to answer like that. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Meir B'Pirkei, when Rabbi Meir used to be a Doresh in the Pirkei, but Rabbiim, Havedarish Tilta Shemata, Tilta Gata, Veltita Matle. He always used to give 1/3, whether it's going to be of Shmata, of the bright thought, 1/3 of a Gata, and 1/3 of Mishalim. That was the greatness of Rabbi Meir. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan, 300 Moshelot Shualim, he had 300 of mashals, of shualim, of the foxes. Ayulo, Rabbi Meir, to Rabbi Meir, he had. Right? Okay, they used to use all these things to teach Torah Musar from the foxes, right? Ve'anu en lanu l'shalosh, and we only have 3 of them. And then it continues with these 3.